Welcome to the first lesson of our math section for the SAT beginner course. In this video, I'll go through the overview and the basics, specifications for the math section, both in terms of our coursework and what you can expect for the SAT math test. First, let's go through the overview of the SAT math test. The test consists of two separate sections totaling 80 minutes. The calculator portion asks students to solve 38 questions within 55 minutes, allowing the use of the calculator. The no calculator portion, on the other hand, as it's aptly called, lasts for 25 minutes and includes only 20 questions. In total, 45 questions of these 58 will be multiple choice, each having 4 options, and the rest 13 questions are student-produced responses, or as we also call them, grid-in questions. There are 4 main sections in terms of content areas for the math test, and we'll go through each of them in detail later. For now, all you need to know is that the first section is called Heart of Algebra, and truly to its name, it covers linear algebra, linear equations, systems of linear equations, and anything else related to algebra and basic arithmetics that you might study throughout middle school and high school. Understanding and using the relationships between linear equations and inequalities, as well as graphs, will be very essential, and that would be one of our main focus here. There would be a total of 19 questions, totaling 33% of the test. The next section would be problem solving and data analysis, accounting for 17 questions or 29% of the questions and scores possible. These questions will target relationships of data using ratios, proportional relationships, percentages, and units. A lot of the questions would also focus on quantitative data and representation of them. And finally, probabilities would also be covered. The third section would be Passport to Advanced Math, with only 16 questions, but also very significant. These questions will focus on identifying and creating equivalent algebraic expressions, solving quadratic, nonlinear equations, and so on. If you don't exactly know what they mean yet, don't worry, because we'll cover them in detail in our next lessons. And our last category of topics would be pretty mixed. They're called additional topics, with only 6 questions in total, accounting for 10% of the scores. And they tend to include slightly more advanced questions in geometry. So we'll have to apply definitions and theorems related to lines, angles, triangles, and circles, which could sound basic. But then, if we apply them with trigonometric functions and knowledge of volume and area, then they could be a little more complex. So those are the 4 content areas for the math test. The topics in the new SAT were adjusted to reflect better academic work at the college level, as well as to help students learn the skills necessary for life. The overall difficulty of the math questions, therefore, as compared to the old SAT, is significantly higher. Now, there's now a focus on data analysis, as similar to how the reading and the writing sections have put more focus on real-world questions as well, as in their sections called infographic and quantitative questions that we'll definitely cover in both those subjects later on. And in math, we have the same focus now. Why? The ability to interpret graphs, to understand plot lines and the different charts that you'll encounter in your daily life, from reading newspapers to reading books or encountering reports about, say, health and sports. All of those items will demand that you be able to understand and interpret correctly the ideas presented. This is especially important if you don't want to get duped in, our 21st century modern life where technology spreads information everywhere whereas the skills to parse through the massive amount of garbage for gems might not be effectively taught at school. And a lot more questions will also start asking you about real-life situations, such as showing you a scenario involving social science, history, or science, and asking you questions about it. Topics not taught in Vietnam until 12th grade or so are also added. These things like trigonometry, complex number, or radians are some examples of more advanced level information and knowledge that you might not remember without preparing for the SAT. Basic probability and statistics are sometimes not stressed in a typical public high school environment, and we'll need to know these theories and put them to practice to score well. Essentially, the test covers all mathematical practices, emphasizing problem solving, modeling using appropriate tools strategically, and looking for and making use of structure to do algebra. And just to reiterate, these topics that are emphasized in the SAT are absolutely central to the demands of academic work in college. Problem solving requires students to understand problems and persevere to solve them, which is a crucial skill and a crucial personality trait to succeed in college. Modeling in math also stresses applications, characteristic of the entire post-secondary curriculum. Students will also be asked throughout high school, college, and their careers in the future to make choices about which tools to use in solving problems. All of these things adding to the final point being that structure is fundamental to solving algebra and to other advanced mathematics. All of these points mean that you need to learn for the SAT math